How to choose a direction when everything is possible. Modern life offers options, more paths, more careers, more identities, more possibilities than any generation before. At first, this feels like freedom, but eventually it can feel like paralysis. When everything is possible, direction becomes harder to choose. Not because you lack opportunity, but because you lack constraint. In earlier periods of history, direction was often given. Family roles, social expectations, geography, and economic necessity limited choices. Those limits reduced freedom, but they also reduced uncertainty. Today, those limits have weakened. You are told you can become almost anything, and yet that freedom creates a new challenge. If every direction is available, which one should you choose? Welcome to 10-Minute Books, where we explore the ideas behind the books that shape how we think, decide, and live. Today we explore one powerful question reflected across 3 influential works: Thinking in Bets by Annie Duke, Nicomachean Ethics by Aristotle, and Superforecasting by Philip Tetlock. How to choose a direction when everything is possible. Annie Duke begins with uncertainty. In Thinking in Bets, she argues that decisions should not be judged by outcomes alone. The world contains randomness. Good decisions sometimes produce bad results. Bad decisions sometimes produce good results. This idea changes how we think about direction. Choosing a direction is not choosing a guaranteed outcome. It is placing a bet. Every career choice is a bet. Every project is a bet. Every long-term commitment is a bet on a future that cannot be fully predicted. The mistake people often make is waiting for certainty before committing. But certainty rarely arrives. Life does not reveal outcomes in advance. Direction emerges from willingness to bet under uncertainty. This perspective can feel uncomfortable at first. People want to know they are choosing correctly, but Duke suggests that the goal is not perfect prediction. The goal is thoughtful decision-making based on available information. If you make good decisions repeatedly over time, probabilities tend to improve. Direction becomes a series of intelligent bets rather than a single irreversible choice. Aristotle approaches the problem from a completely different perspective. In Nicomachean Ethics, he argues that the good life is not discovered through abstract reflection alone. It is formed through practice, through repeated action aligned with virtue. You do not find direction first. You build it. Character creates clarity. Habits reveal preference. Action precedes certainty. Aristotle observed that people discover what suits them through doing. Through practice, you begin to notice patterns. Which activities sustain your attention? Which challenges feel meaningful rather than draining? Which responsibilities you are willing to improve at over long periods of time? Direction reveals itself through repetition. Over time, these patterns become identity. You become the person who practices certain things. A writer becomes a writer through writing repeatedly. A builder becomes a builder through building repeatedly. A thinker becomes a thinker through thinking repeatedly. Direction is not simply a decision. It is a pattern of behavior sustained long enough to become identity. Philip Tetlock adds a third perspective. In Superforecasting, he studies people who consistently make better predictions about uncertain futures. These individuals are not prophets. They do not possess special intuition. Their advantage lies in how they think. They treat beliefs as temporary. They think in probabilities. They constantly update their understanding as new information appears. Applied to direction, this means something important. You do not choose once and lock permanently. You choose. You observe. You update. Direction becomes iterative. Each step provides feedback. Each adjustment improves accuracy. The future becomes clearer through movement. Together, these three books challenge a common assumption: that direction must be certain before action. Instead, they suggest the opposite. Action creates information. Information refines direction. Direction evolves. When everything is possible, the problem is not lack of opportunity. It is lack of decision feedback. Without movement, there is no signal. Without signal, there is no learning. Without learning, there is no clarity. Duke reframes direction as a portfolio of bets. Instead of placing everything on a single prediction, you make several smaller bets over time. Some work, some fail, but each produces information. Aristotle reframes direction as cultivation of character. Instead of asking what job to choose, you ask what kind of person you want to become. Virtue becomes directional stability, discipline, curiosity, practical wisdom. These traits help you navigate uncertainty regardless of field. Tetlock reframes direction as continuous updating. You hold beliefs lightly. You revise based on evidence. You remain flexible rather than rigid. Combined, they produce a practical model. Choose small commitments. Observe outcomes. Update beliefs. Repeat. There is also a psychological difficulty that makes direction harder. Possibility increases perceived risk. When many paths exist, choosing one feels like rejecting all the others. This creates fear of regret. People imagine the life they might have had if they chose differently. This imagined comparison can paralyze action. But uncertainty does not disappear through avoidance. Avoidance is also a bet. It is a bet on staying where you are. Thinking in bets helps reduce this fear. You are not choosing a permanent identity. You are choosing the next experiment. Each step produces information about what fits your temperament, skills, and interests. Aristotle reduces pressure in a different way. He shifts focus from picking the perfect path to becoming the kind of person who navigates paths well. If you cultivate character, direction becomes easier. Discipline allows persistence. Curiosity encourages exploration. Practical wisdom improves judgment. Instead of obsessing over the correct path, you develop the capacity to walk many paths effectively. Tetlock reinforces flexibility. The best forecasters expect to be wrong sometimes. They do not treat adjustment as failure. They treat it as progress. Updating beliefs is not a weakness. It is intelligence. Direction improves through revision. Modern culture often presents direction as revelation, a single moment of clarity, a clear calling, a perfectly aligned purpose. But these books suggest something quieter and more realistic. Direction is constructed. It is discovered through iteration. It is stabilized through character. It is refined through feedback. Another important insight is that clarity often follows commitment. Waiting to feel ready delays learning. Small commitments generate information faster than reflection alone. Trying things reveals preferences. Engaging in projects reveals strengths. Working with people reveals compatibility. Through these experiences, direction becomes less theoretical. It becomes experiential. There is also the role of identity. When everything is possible, identity can feel unstable. You may feel pressure to define yourself quickly, but identity does not have to be decided immediately. Aristotle reminds us that identity forms through repeated action. You become what you repeatedly practice. Direction emerges from identity formation over time. Duke offers permission to treat identity as provisional. You are allowed to test versions of yourself. You can explore without committing forever. Tetlock offers a method for navigating this exploration. Track signals, observe outcomes, update beliefs, avoid overconfidence. Another useful idea is optionality. When uncertainty is high, it is valuable to choose paths that preserve flexibility. Instead of committing immediately to irreversible decisions, you favor choices that keep multiple futures open. Learning broad skills, building adaptable networks, exploring adjacent fields. Optionality allows exploration without permanent loss. Over time, patterns appear, what you return to repeatedly, what you are willing to improve, what problems you enjoy solving. These signals gradually form direction. The paradox is that direction appears gradually, not before movement. Movement reveals preference. Preference reveals commitment. Commitment reveals direction. Over time, constraints reappear. Not external constraints, chosen constraints. You voluntarily narrow focus around what matters most. These chosen constraints create depth. Depth creates mastery. Mastery creates meaning. When everything is possible, the goal is not certainty. It is momentum guided by reflection, thoughtful bets, virtuous habits, continuous updating. That is how direction forms. That was How to Choose a Direction When Everything is Possible, explored through Thinking in Bets, Nicomachean Ethics, and Superforecasting. Which idea resonates most with you, betting, character, or updating? Let us know in the comments. And subscribe to 10-Minute Books for ideas that help you think better, decide better, and live deliberately. Because direction is not found once. It is built repeatedly.